First, we want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit created by veterans for veterans. Pretty much everybody knows a veteran in their life. They know somebody that's served in the military that had to transition back to civilian life, and that can be a very difficult process. VetLife is there to ease that transition. They're there to help veterans get benefits that they deserve and just resources in their community to still have a camaraderie and to not feel so alone after they, dedicated time to this country and to our people. So please follow VetLife on Facebook and Instagram at VetLife, or just visit vetlifetoday.org. I'm joined today by someone that I've known for many years. We worked together through the court system. She's even come in and trained jiu-jitsu before, and this should be an awesome podcast. So for the people that don't know you, Pamela, introduce yourself a little bit, talk a little bit about your background in the community, and I guess how we got to know each other would be a good start.
Sounds good. I met James through my work at the court system, and at the court I worked as a juvenile probation officer, and he came and offered to do a program for teens, and I had many of the kids that were on my caseload come to him, and they were just super inspired and motivated. You can't hear me?
No, I can hear you well now. It's just the closer you speak to the mic, it's just going to record a lot better, but don't worry about it.
Okay, you might need to keep reminding me. And so anyway, James and I met that way, and since then I've just been super inspired by you, so the fact that you wanted me to come join you in conversation today was really humbling, and I feel kind of honored, so thank you.
No problem.
But yeah, so that's how we met. I've worked with juveniles or at-risk kids and their families for the greater part of a decade or more, but that was not my initial path. My initial path was actually dance. So for like 2/3 of my life, that was my focus, both for fun and for career. But that shifted, and it shifted into social work, and so here I am.
Working with kids and through the court system for so long, you really got an intimate look at a lot of the things that are difficult in society. You were seeing people's mental health issues. You were seeing struggles that people have, which, 2020 has brought out. Anyone that's struggling, they're probably struggling more this year. What did you learn when you were in that profession? Because I was fascinated by, you're in a really difficult spot. You're basically having to hear other people's struggles every moment of the day. And I remember you always brought such good energy, and you were always working to try to help the people around you. What was it like being in that environment where constantly, you're trying to solve complex problems that a lot of the times probably feel helpless to you, because no matter what you want to do, I remember seeing that. You want to help these families or these children so bad, you're so limited. What was that career like, and then what made you decide to leave it?
Good question, James. I was drawn to social work just because I ultimately knew I absolutely loved working with people. There was a point where when I knew I was no longer going to take the professional dance path, that I had to look and say, what is it about dance that I love, and how can I pursue this in education and career? And so ultimately, it just came down to, I love working with people, I love motivating people, kind of have like a heart to serve or help others. And so doing so in the court system, which is where I started, I actually was in Wayne County as a juvenile probation officer, and that was an interesting start to a career. I was in my young 20s and always challenged by parents who were constantly asking me, do you have children of your own? Do you even know what you're talking about?
And you went from dance, and you were just thrown into like a very difficult career.
Yeah, but I loved it. I always love being faced with challenges, and so I just kind of looked at that career as that. But there are limitations within any court system, whether it's Wayne County, Washtenaw County, Genesee, or Livingston. Those are the various counties that I've worked in, both doing probation and then like therapeutic or clinical stuff. And the limitations are that, there's ultimately a higher authority, as we all have in life, who we have to run things by in order to help with these families. And the other piece is the financial, and the funding is always an issue. And so there were roadblocks, but one of the things that was cool about working here in Livingston specifically, compared to other counties, is that really the court system, as I saw it, is more progressive. Just from my inside perspective, more progressive and willing to kind of look outside of the box to meet the needs of kids and families, especially in the juvenile court system. And so I did love that. But moving from the court system and then into therapeutic work, both substance abuse, mental health, trauma, all of that kind of stuff, ultimately what I kept finding is that each individual agency or place that you work for has their own vision and their own mission. And I didn't always agree with the methods that were used to achieve that. And so ultimately, after many years of having a few different positions, I just knew it was time to start my own thing. And I've had a vision, so it's called More Than Movement Counseling, which is kind of a strange name, because right now I have people come in my office and we sit and chat, and but it's a vision I had back graduating high school to combine both movement and the arts and dance and physical fitness and all of that with therapy and personal change and growth. And so that vision started when I was, I think, like 18 or 19, and it's just been on my heart since, and I've done nothing with it until recent. So
What made you make that first step? So I'm always fascinated by that. You've had this vision for a long time. You know that you like helping people. You have your vision for how you can create that and how you can be most effective without having to like align yourself with other ideologies on how to get there. What made you make that first step? Because how many people do you know that probably have a dream that they want to do? They really would love to do something, but they never make that initial movement. What was yours that said, you know what, it's time?
for me, it was a series of back-to-back pretty extreme loss, combined with a strengthening in my faith where I thought, I'm not going to try to control these things anymore. There's a reason this has been on my heart for almost 2 decades. And so there was opportunity, but combined with just kind of a new sense of how I was seeing really the world and relationships and stuff. I think they call them major life stressors or something. There's a term out there for like there's like the top 10 very serious events in life that can cause the most stress. So like marriage, divorce, loss of a job, loss of house, loss of loved one, and often it's loss of something. I had like a series of like 6 of those in less than a year. And so it was time to take a look at like, where am I gonna go next? Am I just gonna jump into another job that is fulfilling but doesn't feel like I'm following my full passion, or is this time to take a chance? And so
I love that. So yeah. I mean, I love that. I just love when people really try to pursue what's going to fulfill them, because I think if more people did that, the world's more beautiful, because then there's real passion backing, what you're doing, instead of just, you're not just going to a job to get a paycheck, to answer to a superior. Your heart's in it. And when your heart's in something, there's so much more potential, So are you out of Howell now? Where's the business located, and how long have you been open, and how is it going?
So I started my private practice in, I want to say September of last year, so about a year. And at that time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do or how I was going to live financially. And shout out to Mom, Pa, my parents. They have been like unbelievably supportive to help me and my kids, because I have 3.5 and 4.5-year-old boys, Mark and Clark, and then I have a 11-year-old stepson, Luke, that I have on the weekends sometimes too. But one of the losses was a divorce, and so we are now, my kids and I, living with my parents again, and they've just helped so much. So anyway, as far as how that relates to this starting, is they've been supportive, giving us the roof over our heads and doing all of that for us so that I could pursue this, which is absolutely amazing. I would not have been able to do it otherwise. And I had a couple of clients, very regular, for a few months, and I said, what am I going to do? Do I need to get a part-time job, or what do I need to do to be able to continue to maintain this and grow? And so I actually came across a job description on Facebook, which at the time I didn't really know that was a thing. Now I'm seeing it more and more, but I was like, I was surprised by it, and it was a program coordinator for, it's called the Severe Weather Network of Livingston County. It's the adult men and women homeless shelter during the severe winter months, hence the name, which is kind of
Gotcha.
weird. People think it's about like weather broadcasts, but it's not. It's
When you first said it, that's exactly what I thought.
yeah, we've had people like if we're at like a festival or something, you know, kind of just raising awareness, people will come and quickly grab a card and say things like, and I'm almost quoting this individual, tornado season is upon us, so we're going to grab one of these. We're going to need it. But then they walk away before we even have a chance to be like, no.
At that point, you just run with it.
We're a homeless shelter. So anyway, I just felt like compelled to look into that. And so I've been working with the board of directors at the shelter now since last November, I believe I started. And it was a part-time position, but absolutely amazing. Like, I just had no idea how much I was going to love it. But you want to talk about like forward thinking, serving others, taking it to the next level kind of people. Every single person that serves on that board is of that mindset, and they're so selfless, and every single one of them is doing that. Doing that, meaning basically running a shelter entirely on their own with volunteers. Until they hired me to help. These individuals all had full-time jobs, but then we're running this night shelter. And so they're just an awesome group of people. They've, talk about timing, it just like, it kind of got me out of a funk and just so inspirational. And so I continue to be a part of that team. So my focus shifted more to that during the winter season. So I just had the couple clients, and then I was actually starting to think, like, what am I, like, I can't just keep renting an office space. You know, I was like, where do I go next? Is this time do I need to fold the cards already or what? And the person who owns the building was really gracious and gave me a break on rent for a few months. And then I just started getting tons of word of mouth referrals. So I have like
recently,
like I'm talking probably the past 4 weeks, maybe.
Post-COVID, I bet you there's going to be a lot of people looking for others to help.
Yeah. And so now I think, I haven't even looked lately because there's been a few more over the weekend, but I think I'm at like 13 or 14 clients. And so it's growing, it's good. Now I just need to get some courage to like charge a little more so that,
Sure.
so that it's somewhat profitable, because I've just been wanting to get people in the door and help people, but I won't be able to maintain that way. So we'll see. That's a whole nother thing. That's
No, of
the
course.
business side of it, which isn't my favorite, but.
But do you find yourself when you're there or when you're doing that it's reinvigorating you? It's bringing a lot of energy to your life, although it's difficult, especially, I mean, I understand starting from the beginning is really, really tough, but when you're doing something that your heart's in, I feel like in a weird way, even the tough, hard times, it's filling you with spirit instead of draining you. When you go to a job and you're having struggles, you're taking your energy level down. Mm-hmm. You're almost, leveling up so that probably when you're home with your kids, you're more of yourself. You're more vibrant in the world. You have better energy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's huge. That's huge. The one thing I want to go back to that you talked about that I think is really overlooked in our society is how well you understand the connection to movement or exercise or taking care of yourself or getting your body movement. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like a lot of times depression and things that, anxiety, they create people that are stagnant. They create people, it feels more comfortable just to go home and lay in bed. Whereas a workout might sound like the last thing on earth that you want to do. Like, I don't want to go do that. But if you just can find a way through either someone else's guidance or through a partner or through something to get out there and just make yourself do it. Movement is, a vital necessity for people. We have to do it. Mm-hmm. When you exercise, even when you just engage with the world, if you have good dialogue, you're like getting some of the pressures of life out. Mm-hmm. With you understanding that connection, what would you say it is like when a new client comes to you and they're struggling with whatever parameter of their life that they're having issues with? What is like your process? So a new person comes to you and they're trusting you to help guide them through a difficult time. What would you say is like a part of your blueprint for like, let's get this thing turned around? Is it a lot of counseling? Is it like half and half? What's your process? Like if someone was going to say, you know what, I listened to this interview, I'd love to go meet that woman. I think she'd be great to meet my daughter or my son or whatever it is. What would you tell them?
So these are such good questions. Right now, it's it's hard to put to words what I offer, but an example recently that it both made me laugh, but I kind of appreciated it. There's a woman that has been sending me referrals, and the family called and said that she described me as unconventional counseling or therapy. I was like, I think I can get with that, unconventional, because I've just taken little pieces from all my experiences along the way to kind of create my own model. And I work mostly with parents or teens, but not only. I'm also, like right now I have quite a few like 19, 20, 21-year-olds who just want someone to talk to and kind of start goal setting. But for me, the number one thing is getting to know someone, making them comfortable, making sure they feel a connection with me in a way that they want to proceed. And I always say that after the first time we meet, like, if this doesn't feel right, let me know, because we're not going to be able to.
You have to know the person cares.
Yeah, and sometimes people just don't feel it. And rather than have them go on, I'd rather them just say that. And I let them know based on everything they chatted with me about regarding their lives. If I have any limitations to address anything, just right up front so that they know. But usually, like one of my strengths is assessing for some reason, and that's the fancy word truly for just like really understanding what's gone on with someone and the different aspects of their life and how it's currently impacting them. I mean, that's like, so they use all the terms out there like, evaluation and these psychological and this and that. And there is a lot to those. I mean, trust me, I don't know much about the brain, so I stay away from those types of science evaluations. But as far as like what I actually do, I kind of call it like loving confrontation. Like, you're gonna hear from me what my thoughts are.
Some tough love.
Yeah, and my experience from working in the court system, I was not the counselor, so we'd often work with various counselors, and when I say the court system, it's broad spectrum, all the different counties I was talking about, but it is hard to find like a therapist or programs that are really comfortable just like being real and letting you know how it is and saying the hard things even though it's uncomfortable. And so that really is, in a nutshell, what I do. As far as the vision for what I do, I've started to ask a few clients if there was a movement piece to the programming, if they'd be interested, and I've had a lot of interest. And so my current workout buddy and he also has a very, very similar dream and mindset as far as movement and motivating and mentoring, similar to that of what you were doing with the kids here, truly. And so he and I have been talking about maybe teaming up to start that piece of it, but it's very new, all the conversations. And my thought would be that we have a program where there is the piece, where there is movement, exercise, dance, whatever it may be. The person comes and they do that for a portion of the time, probably in a group setting, but could be otherwise. And then after that, when their endorphins are up and they're motivated and they're feeling good and they see what they can accomplish, that would be the door that's opened to then have conversation or maybe inspire people who would otherwise be uncomfortable talking or learning.
I like it. I feel like a lot of the times too many people give away power that they have because you started to do it for a moment there where you talked about, well, I don't really know the brain as well. Sometimes it doesn't have to be as complex as we want to make things. Sometimes it's simply if you care about a human being sitting in front of them and you can take a step back because you're not tied into the emotions of their life like they are, and you're able to analyze their situation and break down what are they struggling with, what is in their control, what is beyond their control, what needs to be let go of, what needs to have some resolution. And you're not the one holding all those intangibles and all the feelings. So you're able to just like break through it as like almost like you would break down an algorithm. You'd be like, hey, this is a formula. Let's make this formula yield success, right? So I think too often you have people that there's probably tons of people out there like you that care about people that could help, but sometimes they disempower themselves because they think like, oh, well, I don't have a master's degree in psychology. I don't think you need to. I think you need to care about people, and I think you need to really give your best. Sometimes how many times have you heard of a story where a best friend saved someone's life? That's not a psychologist. It's not a therapist. It's just someone was there for them and I'll help them get through the difficult times in their life. So I love hearing what you're talking about right now. I think it's really empowering. And more importantly, I think you have endless possibility in front of you right now. Like, you have the potential to add a movement aspect, see if it works, see what's good about it, see what's not good about it, develop it from there, but without the fear of like, is this the right answer? Because you get to kind of figure it out and get feedback and learn as you go and probably bring more people into your group that can help in that. So being someone that's been around mental health issues for so long and seeing people that have struggled, this is a difficult question, and I guess you could tie it right to 2020, but like, why do you believe it is so rampant that I would say, at least half of the people that I know struggle with anxiety and depression, and it's unbelievable. Like, I don't know, I don't remember it being like this when I was little. I'm sure that a lot of people had struggles, but I remember like it was a smaller percentage, or like you didn't see it as rampant as it is today. Everybody today is struggling with something, and it's very like outwardly obvious. You can see people crippled by stress. I know people that can't pick up a phone and make a phone call because of fear of, what if I say the wrong thing, or what if it doesn't? We have kids that come in the door here that they go out on the mat and they go to start doing the warm-up and don't do well on like a front roll. And then they can't even handle the fact that like, I'm not good enough. What if people are judging me? Why do you think this is? Because obviously I see a lot of people on a regular basis, but you were really in the center of seeing people that deal with some major adversity. Why is society in such a wreck? That's a really difficult question to answer, but what have you learned being in the profession that you're in?
That is like such a loaded question, because I think there's a lot to it. The first thing that came to mind, though, when you started speaking is, I think, for generations, people have been struggling with mental illness and with the related symptoms, and there just wasn't necessarily a term for it. And that can be both good and bad, the whole labeling piece. However, I think it was just kind of really kept secret, like within individuals and families. And even now, if I think of, my close friends or family or people that I know that are struggling with depression, the norm is not to talk about that or share that with people or even seek help. That really is, from my experience, not the norm. Oftentimes people either have to have the rug pulled out from under them or be on their last chance of something. There needs to be something to kind of force it often, but that could also just be from my history, like from probation. But I even, again, outside of that circle, I often see that. So for me, it's absolutely like amazing and refreshing and humbling and inspiring to find people who are willing to openly talk about that and share their truth and share their story, because it's nothing to be ashamed of. Like you said, the greater majority these days are experiencing it. I think they always have been. It just hasn't been there hasn't been as much education around it. People haven't been aware, and also the acceptance piece. I think people have not been that accepting of it. Like even until like the last decade or so, addiction was not looked at as like a disease or something that actually changes your mind and your body in a way where it's a physical thing for people. And now that's coming around finally, so there's not such a huge stigma with that, so that people feel more comfortable seeking help or addressing those types of things. So I just hope that like as a community and as individuals, that like veil of judgment continues to lower, I guess, so that people will continue to seek help. And then society is just wild with media and all the social connections now. There's so much awesomeness to all of that, but just like everything just keeps becoming, it seems to me like it's more fast-paced. So I actually enjoyed the quarantine piece for that reason, to be able to slow down.
It's like a reset button.
Yeah, I was like, this is the first time I've been able to kind of be like an at-home mom. Like, am I gonna be able to pay the bills? I don't care. I'm enjoying this with
I have time with my kids.
Yeah. No, we're good. We were good, but so a lot of it is like I said, I just think people need to be like more open and accepting of it, and then be brave enough to kind of talk about it or ask others for help.
It is a complex problem because, I mean, not only do people not really want to be vulnerable or show vulnerability because, it makes them like, it's like they're already struggling. Now all of a sudden they have to be vulnerable on top of it to make progress. That's difficult. But then a lot of the times it's a burden to other people because everybody pretty much is battling their own fight. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't meet a lot of people that really have all of the parts of their life together. There are some that they're crushing it in business, they're crushing it in relationships, they're just crushing it across the board. But it's rare. So I think if you opened up more and you put yourself out there more, you'd realize that most people are struggling. Most people have their own demons that they're battling with or their own losses that they're working their way through. And if there was more of an acceptance in the vulnerability, like, hey, what if we just realize that like this is part of the life experience, and if we interact together and you share your bad and I share my bad and we work, you help me solve my problems because your emotions aren't tied to mine and mine aren't tied to yours, we could kind of level up together. And really, I think that it needs to start within the close circles in your life. Like if you have a good family, you're way more likely to get through tough times. If you have a good circle of people around you, like your close friends are good, loving human beings, you're more likely to get through it. So a lot of the times, I feel like you just got to closely monitor the people around you too. Because a lot of people, you got a bunch of shitheads around you. Of course, it seems like life is terrible, yeah. Of course, it's not a shock. You've got to really monitor. It's not even just you. You might just be in circumstances where the people around you are not good human beings. Or, I mean, everybody's on a spectrum. We're all on a certain level from worst person alive to best person alive.
You're not perfect?
No, definitely not. So with that being said, there's a spectrum of us, but with we need to evaluate, like, what are the people in my life serving a purpose for? Like, are they making me better? Are they challenging me to grow? Are they beating me down? Do I feel like I can't open up to them? And then a lot of the times the kids that I met through the court system, it wasn't even that these kids really were broken people. They were in terrible environments. They were surrounded by people that weren't contributing in any way positive, and they felt helpless. But like, that's one of the main things I would talk to them about is as soon as you can get out of that circumstance and you realize that that's not life. That's just your circumstance right now. As soon as you guys are out of that environment, you're on your own career, and you can start opening doorways for yourself, and no one's holding you down and telling you you're not good enough, you're going to see that life is not what you think it is. You know what I mean? And that's probably also the reason why a lot of people that struggle early on tend to be, I think, super successful later, is because they kind of figure those things out. You know what I mean? Life has already crushed you. You've already had to hit a bottom and go, wait a second.
Yeah.
Let me figure this thing out.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. What has 2020 been like for you? Was it really difficult for your business aspect? Was it a nice reset for you, like you said, for a moment where you got to start over? And do you foresee the woman that came out of this experience being, more capable? You learned lessons from this. Your business is going to grow because of it. I like to ask almost everybody that I interview, like, what has 2020 been like for you? Because our experiences are so different. For me, I was like, it was terrible initially, but now it's actually probably going to be the best year of my life, And we have other people that I did a podcast with that basically said, 2020 was the worst experience of their life, and it took away a lot of things that they had been working towards, or they lost jobs, or they lost income, or, projects. What has 2020 been like for you?
I would say it's just solidified my current attitude towards life that has changed over the past year or two leading up to the COVID experience and all of that, and just kind of sharpened and reaffirmed my vision, not just for me professionally, but like in life, just wanting to serve people, interact and be around people, and hopefully help them just to feel better about themselves in general, whether it's a friend or whether it's through counseling. I feel more capable than I ever have. And then as soon as I start to feel that way, I'm humbled again in a good way. So it's just like this roller coaster of, gratitude, really. Really, I'm sitting in a lot of gratitude. And 2020 has just continued that for me, to be honest. I'm not fearful of all the stuff going on. It is part of life. It's at an extreme level right now, but like I said, I'm grounded in my faith. I think there's something bigger than all of this, and it keeps me going. Just makes me want to connect even more with people. So that's the best way I would summarize it.
That's good to hear, because you just talked a couple moments ago about you got hit by a major series of loss. You were hit over and over, basically just beaten down by life. And yet here you are saying, I'm in a stronger place of gratitude with a better mindset, more grounded in my faith, and more hopeful for the future than I've ever been. That right there tells a massive message to people that are struggling. Sometimes the struggle is just building the foundation for the future. You know what I mean? Because if you don't struggle, you don't really know what you're made of. You don't realize that it's going to be all right. You know what I mean? Hey, you know what? Throw some stuff at me. It'll be all right. I'll find my way through it. You have the strength. You know, and actually the woman that was on yesterday, recently I had, do you know Josh Parrish or Kevin Nagel from the courts? Kevin Nagel's a lawyer in town.
I know Kevin Nagel.
Kevin Nagel was in. He just did a podcast. He talked a lot about, like, he went through some wild stuff if you listen to that podcast and then turned his life around by hitting his rock bottom. Josh Parrish is another gentleman that works through the courts. And we had a girl on yesterday who talked a lot about faith and the role that that plays in her life and how she's like, listen, no matter kind of what I get crushed by, I have like this bottom level that no matter what, I know that like there's a part of something bigger here. I know that like it's going to be all right. It's all lessons that are going to get me towards where I need to be. How, as somebody I'm not religious at all, but I have friends that are ultra religious and then not religious, and every spectrum in between. How do you believe your faith has been a crucial role in helping you through these difficult times?
It's been number one. It's been the top. So for me, it's hard to put into words. It's truly like I have experienced some just really surreal things that I don't know how I was capable of getting through, and I attribute that to there was a point where I just really let go. And prior to that, I was trying to control so much as far as my life and me and results and the caring about the people around me, but in almost suffocating ways. And so when I was faced with these losses, it was just like, okay, am I going to survive this or not? And I just had to let go. And so faith has been my landing pad with all of that and helped to guide me. I just feel like there's a greater purpose to all of this. And for me, that's looking at like an eternity, an eternal focus beyond this. I don't think this is it. So for me, I understand there's lots of views and beliefs out there, but for me, it's Christianity. I believe Jesus is the man, and
shout to the homie.
Yeah,
it's funny because, well, not funny. That's not the word. The words that you just used are almost verbatim exactly what Natalie said yesterday when I asked her about her faith and how it, like, if I played the track side by side, you two almost spoke the identical words about like I just knew that I could let go and there was something greater. And because yesterday I broke it down to like there's almost always a safety net for people with faith. No matter what happens, no matter how wild life gets, no matter how traumatic events, you have a safety net that you're going to hit that's like, it's a part of a plan. There's a purpose, we're God's children. He loves us. Like you're not going to truly hit a rock bottom because you have a foundation. And it was almost it gave me a chills a little bit there because you said the identical words as her. And there's something powerful to that. And that's what I was talking to her about yesterday. I would almost think that maybe a lot of people that are so desperately like trying to find themselves in this life, and they're so desperately just trying to like have something that they can hold on to that allows them to then build the future. Faith could almost fill that slot. It's not for me, but in a weird way, so many of the things you say, I feel the same way. Like I realized in my life, stop trying to control anything other than yourself. Focus on yourself and focus on the actions that you can control, because like I could love my partner to death, be the best man I could ever be for her, and she could leave me in a heartbeat. And it's beyond my control. I could do so many things in my life. They're just beyond you can control you. And if you're the best you're going to get the best experience out of this life. And if you were a worse version, if you're an asshole or you're all these things, you're just going to compound your problems. But learning to let go and not having to control everything, but just being like, you know what? I'm going to give my best. I'm going to give my best to the people in my life. I'm going to give my best to conversation. I'm going to give my best to my relationships and my career. You're going to have the best life experience. And,
Right.
and life's not supposed to be all sunshine and rainbows. Because really, the bad times in life, make you appreciate good times in life. And you just alluded to that when you said, I am sitting here now in more of a place of gratitude and thankfulness and hopefulness for the future after a series of loss. You know what I'm saying? So like in a weird way, that's like the beauty of this design or this life experience is even the worst times when you create proper perspective, man, it's just a part of the ride. So I'm almost fascinated by faith because I think whether you tie it to a religion or not, it's a necessity in all people. Like you need to have purpose. You need to find like, why is life worth living? Why should you go on? And whether you tie it to a religious belief or you know like Buddhists believe there's certain tenets and Christianity has another, no matter what, you got to find purpose and you got to believe that it's going to be okay. Because otherwise, you know, I said to her yesterday, like life will beat the shit out of you and there's no ref.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you'll be getting kicked on the ground. Like someone will be like, can we stop this already? And until you fight back, life just doesn't care. You have to like do it for yourself. So I really think that could maybe play a role in helping other people too, because maybe they just need that element of like, there's something bigger. If I move forward, things will get better.
I agree. Yes.
Were you born and raised in a religious family? Like, did you grow up religious or did you find religion when you were older?
So I was raised Catholic, and depending on what time frame in my life we're discussing, my family and I would be going to church regularly or not. It ebbed and flowed. But by the time I was in high school and I was supposed to get confirmed Catholic, I thought, I don't know enough about this religion to do that. And so I didn't. And from that point on, I just kind of sought God myself. And truthfully, I think when my relationship with God accelerated was when I got involved with, it's what I contacted you about. Let's see if he remembers, guys. Those of you that are listening
I'm
out
on the
there,
spot.
I'm going to challenge him. And that was a hint, the word challenge. Mid-course correction challenge camp.
I do remember that. Yeah, you messaged me on Facebook.
That's how this whole thing got going. Yeah, so I got involved with that, and it's a Christian ministry. However, the focus is really just on helping at-risk teens and the parents. It's a weekend boot camp style intervention to help kids get on the right path. And the work that is done there is just, and the people I met, the director, well, he's now.
How many years ago was this? I don't remember exactly. I remember
I
think that was like 6 years ago, maybe 5.
For the audience. 5 years ago?
Wasn't this like 5 years ago?
What are you talking about?
When you reached out to me about this challenge?
Guys, I don't mean to embarrass you in front of the public. No, I just contacted you. I contacted you about the fundraiser coming up.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the initial time you reached out to me, like way back when we started this program. Because we've known each other for what?
Probably
5 years?
Yeah, it's maybe even longer.
You're talking about the camp that you just messaged me about before we set up the podcast date, where I said, hey, let's do a podcast.
Yes.
I knew that.
I don't know, guys. Yeah, I wasn't clear. I apologize.
No problem.
But yeah, so that program has just been a huge part of my life. I started off as a drill instructor on the weekends there, and then moved into more of just a staying connected consulting role when
But you said
got pregnant.
This is when your faith like shot
Yeah,
up? So just very recently?
No, I've been involved in this program for, I think I was like 23.
Okay, you've been in it forever, but you reached out to me about it recently.
Just the fun, yes.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
It's been around almost 30 years. Yeah, and I've been involved when I knew I was going to start social work, and I was going to Eastern at the time. I'll save that story for another time, but that was another holy, like, wow, faith moment of just how that even landed in my lap at the time. It was bizarre, and it's been a big part of my life ever since. And yeah, so that's when it just took
really
off.
Clicked for you.
Because I started to just see things and meet people that, you know, I otherwise don't think I ever would have. So yeah, and then the series of losses just took it to the next level. So
you had to like put your faith back in something. You had to say, hey, you know what? I'm getting pummeled here, and I got to know that the future is going to be brighter. And now it is. Now you're starting to get back on track. You know, COVID hit, and yet here we're still sitting here. We're having conversation. The businesses are going to move forward. Everything's going to be all right.
Yep.
You know, it's a good thing. So I guess the last thing we'll talk about before we're going to wrap this up, let's talk about goals for your business and what you're launching. What is it going to look like in the next 6 months, year, 2 years? Like, what are your goals or your vision for it? And if someone was interested, or if someone wanted to support what you're doing, like, how do they reach you? How do they hear about you? You know, how does someone get involved with your organization? First, your goals, though.
Okay, so are we talking about my individual More Than Movement counseling currently? Okay, yep. So,
which obviously that could have branches, like you said, you might be starting another program with that friend of yours, and it's working out. It might grow into other things. Like, what do you see it evolving into?
Okay, so right now, ultimately, I would like to have a location where there is space to provide movement opportunities in groups or individual settings, as well as office space to sit down and, intervene with people and help them goal set or move their life in a new direction if they're struggling. And so ideally, that would happen at a location. And then I even envision possibly like traveling or going to places to help people with that. So whether it be like schools or other counseling agencies or, offices, I mean, anything really. Ultimately, like it is something that could be mobile, and
of course,
what I have in my mind. And so really just taking it to the point where I'm getting movement involved would be like the number one goal. But I also want to, right now I'm meeting with individuals as they contact me and request to meet me. But I do want to do a little bit of more marketing or something to do the assessment piece, because I think that's like really, really lacking in the helping field. So I could go on, I'm going to try to not soapbox this as much as possible, but there's access to very individualized assessments. So like somebody's struggling with addiction, they're going to get a substance use assessment. Someone's struggling with mental illness, they're going to see a psychiatrist. And on and on. But
there's not like overall, look at this person as a...
No. And so I found, being in the field, it was so rare that you would find someone who did an assessment for one of these things, but also included a thorough look at all the other stuff.
That's super bizarre because human beings are complex. I mean, it's like, imagine looking at a pie chart. Yeah, they might have addiction, but what about this and this and this and this and this? And if you only address one thing, what are the chances that you're going to try to fix this whole painting?
I mean, once in a while there would be an assessor who really took the time, or a professional
to understand the
look
entire
at that stuff, but it was rare. And it's funny you use the word complex, because I think that's what I want to call it, is just a complex assessment and it's going to be a general overview.
Sure.
Because oftentimes too, things that are overlooked are like the other people in their life and how they're impacting them, or even interviewing or talking to those other people.
100%.
And so that was always kind of my jam, is like the more people you talk to, the more you look at every aspect, the more you're going to understand where the gaps are for these people and why they're stuck.
Of course.
And help them move forward.
I mean, I'm not in it at all, but that makes perfect sense. I mean, it really would be like, imagine a photo of someone and you zoom all the way in and you only look at what's wrong with the tips of their hair. You have to look at the entire picture of this person as a human being and break down like who is in their life. What does their career look like? What do they look like financially? What does their living situation look like? What is their family life like? What are their relationships? What things are they doing to themselves? What is their mind doing? How is their perspective on all of these things? So sitting on the outside, that makes perfect sense. I'm shocked to hear that it's not a more common theme. I think you're onto something. How could you not look at a human being as the overall picture and then trying to solve it? Because some areas probably need more attention than others.
Right.
But when you can show people the ability to grow in many ways, that can create hope.
Yeah. If you're just focusing on the one main issue that's been identified, you're missing all these other areas for both possible strengths that could help or areas of growth that could assist with that thing. And also other reasons why, like contributing factors to why this is happening.
Something could be fueling that. Maybe I'm an alcoholic, but maybe the reason I'm an alcoholic is because there's a ton of other issues that are unresolved. And you're just throwing me in AA, but you're not fixing the other issues.
Right.
That's like, it's a wound that needs surgery that you're just like, you keep covering up. You're like, no, we're good. You know what I mean? You have to try to, that's one of the biggest reasons, and I don't know how you feel about this, and we don't have to go into this topic, but like I'm against most medications and like throwing people on antidepressants and stuff. You're just adding another thing into the mix. It's like there's already a complex problem. Now you're going to change brain chemistry and hormone levels and now you got to fix the problems on top of that. Because really at the end of the day, you got issues that are causing you to experience what you're experiencing. You want to try to solve the problem or make it simpler. You don't want to make it more complex. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm against that stuff. And don't get me wrong, there's probably absolutely cases where people need medication. They don't produce serotonin in their brain. They experience no joy. Maybe. Okay. But overall, the majority of people I meet, they just need to fix some things that are plaguing their mind, and they might be pushing it to the back of their mind. So they don't know why their life sucks. But really, if you worked through the layers, they do know what they're struggling with.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a lot of respect for that perspective. Mine is somewhat similar to that, but yours seems to like on the far end of it, which is totally fine.
I'm kind of an extremist.
No medication unless you're totally depleted. I would say my approach is to see what can be done prior to medication, definitely. And then if all else fails, then talk to someone about the possibility of medication. I look forward to a day where science has evolved enough that they truly can evaluate the actual chemical piece better. I know there's the blood testing out there and stuff right now, but it's just none of it's like a perfect science yet, so it's not been super
And unfortunately,
helpful.
It's a business a little bit like everything else. I mean, a lot of the times there's profit over people. It's easy to give someone 4 drugs that they're going to take for the next 30 years than try to solve the complex problems of this person's life when you have another client walking in 10 minutes.
Right, yeah.
It's a tough thing.
Yeah,
you know?
and
we need more people like you. No, we need more people that are going to try to solve the complex problems without just, blanket addressing them.
yeah, I've seen one too many kids, and I've seen a lot of kids who are definitely zombies because they're over medicated, and that's just really
terrible.
sad.
I would have been, thank God my parents didn't put me on it, but like I would have been the biggest ADD, ADHD because like I didn't care about school at all. Like
I think you still might be.
Man,
it's just
no,
working
absolutely.
for you.
Yeah. No, I think it's like a superpower. Like I wake up like, what are we going to get done today? Like people would absolutely medicate me, but instead I just learned how to take who I am and be effective with it. You know
And
what I
that's
mean?
the preference for sure. 'Cause
Yeah.
we all have strengths with that stuff.
Yeah.
People just often look at things as weaknesses, and really there's
There's a way to make it a strength.
Yep, totally.
So, Pamela, to wrap this thing up, just, for anyone that's following this, anyone that wants to contact you directly, anyone that wants to support your program or see if they can get involved and help you out with that, or that's inspired by the story that you're telling, how do people contact you? Can they follow you online? Do you have social media? Do you want to say, how they would go to your business directly? Just anything that you want to leave this podcast with, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yes, so I have a page on Facebook is all I have right now. I don't have a website or anything yet, but you would look up More Than Movement LLC, and then you can also go to psychologytoday.com, and I have a profile there that also lets people know how to contact me. And I'm based out of Brighton, but I've also done some virtual stuff for people if they're far away or don't want to come in person. But
Zoom is taking over the world.
Yeah, but I am meeting in person and prefer that if people are comfortable. So yeah, you could contact me any of those ways, and I'd be delighted to speak with you.
Well, and I can 100% vouch for Pamela. I've known her for many years now. Like I said, she's coming here to train jiu-jitsu. I've watched her work with kids within the court system, and really just you would never know that she's gone through so many ups and downs in life because you always bring like just a really good, happy energy. And that's important in life. You know what I mean? And a lot of times I find people that have struggled the most have that energy. So you can kind of empathize with people that are struggling. So anyone that's out there listening, you probably know people in your life that could just use a hand up, or that could, that are just trying to turn their life around, and what they really need is someone that cares. So hope you guys enjoyed listening to this day. Thank you for being with me here today, Pam. And, we'll wrap this thing up.
Thanks for having me.